Morning, Rabbi.
Good
We
morning.
are learning Mishnah Sotah, Parakeh, Chapter 5, Mishnah Mishnah 4. Okay, so just going to give a quick introduction to this Mishnah. This Mishnah has to do with Az Yasher. Every morning we say Az Yasher, what the Jewish people sang at the splitting of the Yam Suf. And the whole discussion is going to be how to explain the first pasuk and to understand when Moshe and the Jewish people sang this song, what exactly were they doing? Were they singing it together? Were they not exactly singing it together? And we're also going to see in this Mishnah a very interesting way as to how Hallel used to be recited. We recite Hallel, everybody recites it, right? Everybody does it. There was a point of time that's not how Hallel was done. It was actually said in a responding manner. And not a responding manner of every single verse. So the Mishnah reads, "Boy bayayim derash Rabbi Akiva." On that day, again, on that day means the day the Rebbe Lazar ben Azariah became the Nasi of the Jewish people. On that day, derash Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva taught. He'd made a derivation from a verse in the Torah, and he taught. Oz Yasher Moshe v'nei Yisrael Hashira Hazos Lashem Vayomru Lemar. Then Moshe and the Jewish people sang this song to Hashem. Now here are the main words to focus on. Vayomru Lemar. And they said to say. Now, She'ein Tamid Loimar Lemar. Which means that this does not seem to be, there doesn't seem to be any reason to say that word Lemar, to say. Meaning, the pasuk could say, and Moshe and the Jewish people sang this song, and they said, meaning, and they declared, they said, what's the lamar to say? Now, typically, what does lamar mean? When the word lamar is used to say, what does it mean? What does that mean? So let's use the classic example, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lamar, which means Hashem spoke to Moshe to say. Hashem tells Moshe something to say to the Jewish people. But what does that mean here? When it says Moshe and the Jewish people sang, and they said to say, who are they telling to say? They're the ones who are doing the singing. What does it mean they said to say? To say to whom? That's what it means. She'ein tamid loymar loymar. She'ein tamid loymar loymar. That, there doesn't seem to be a reason to state loymar and umat tamid loymar loymar. So if so, what does the Torah want to teach us by saying the word lemar, to say? Malame, this teaches us, Shor Yisrael Einim Achrav Shel Moshe. The Jewish people responded after Moshe, Akol Davar V'Davar, for each phrase, K'koyrin es HaHalel, as Halel is recited. Okay, so let's just take in those words. They teaches us by saying lemar means to say, that the Jewish people responded to Moshe on each phrase as we read Halal, Lakach Nemar Lemar, therefore it says to say. So Vayomru, and they said to say, meaning the Jewish people were responding to Moshe. Moshe had said something, and now there was a lemar, there was to say means to teach us that there was the Jewish people not actually saying it in full, but rather responding to what Moshe said. So now, what does it mean like reading the Hallel? So let me read to you how the notes explains it. And that is, in those times, the Hallel was not recited by each person as is our custom. Rather, the leader said Hallel phrase by phrase, and the people responded after each phrase as follows. Listen to this. After the leader said the first word, Hallelujah, that's the first word of Hallel, right? Hallelujah. The people responded, Hallelujah. The leader then said the next phrase, Hallelu Avdei Hashem, give praise servants of Hashem. The people responded, Hallelujah. There was this constant response of Hallelujah to each phrase that the Chazan says. However, at the beginning of each psalm, after the leader said the first phrase, the people repeated that very phrase. For example, after the leader said the first phrase of the second psalm, when Israel left Egypt, the people responded, Mitzrayim. Okay? But then they went back to the previous pattern of saying Hallelujah after each phrase until the next psalm when the pattern was begun again. So basically, Hallel worked. The first word of the first paragraph of Hallel is Hallelujah. So people said Hallelujah. The second phrase, the second paragraph of Hallel begins, B'tzeis Yisrael Mitzrayim. The Jewish people said, the congregation rather says, B'tzeis Mitzrayim. The beginning of each paragraph of Hallel, the congregation responded to those first words that the Chazan started. But then for the rest of Hallel, it was only the Chazan who said Hallel, but after each phrase, he would stop and the congregation would say, Hallelujah. So, Karbanas Hallel means Hallel was not said, everybody's saying Hallel. Hallel was said in a responsive way. So therefore, the Mishna is saying that when the Jewish people and Moshe sang the song by the splitting of the Yam Suf, it was the same thing. So here is how they explain it. Similarly, Moshe sang the first words of the song, I shall sing to Hashem, Ashir Hashem. And the people responded, Ashir Hashem. Moshe then sang the next phrase, Ki ga'ai ga'ah, for he is exalted above the arrogant, and the people responded, Ashir Hashem, I'll sing to Hashem. Meaning in Hallel, the response is Hallelujah. And here, the response for everything was Ashir Hashem. Lekach nemer leimar, and that's why it says leimar, which means, and I'm reading to you again how they explained it here, had the verse said only, and they spoke without to say, it would have meant that Moshe and the Jewish people spoke the Shira together. They said the whole thing together. By adding to say, the verse teaches that only Moshe spoke the entire Shira, and each phrase that he recited prompted the people to say a response. That's the to say, the leimar. The leimar, again, it's not the same way that leimar usually means, but here leimar to say means that the Jewish people were prompted by Moshe to say a response to what he said. So that is how Rabbi Akiva explained the pasuk. Reb Nechemia says, no, kekarben Shema v'loy kekarben Hallel. They did it as we read Shema, and not as we read Hallel. When we read Shema, does everybody read Shema, or does the Chazan say parts of it and we respond? No, we say the whole Shema together. He says the whole Shema, we say the whole Shema. And therefore, he says, Reb Nechemia says, the Jewish people did say the whole Shira. Hallel is in response. That's not a disagreement. But as Yashir was not the song of the Shira Hayam, the song by the sea, was not saying but like Hallel, but rather like Kriya Shema. And that means Moshe started the Shira. Moshe says Moshe first. Moshe started the song, and then all the Jews joined him and sang every word with him. And then everybody joined in and said every word. So therefore, according to this view, here in the notes, the word and they spoke mean to say that all of them, Moshe and the Jewish people, spoke together. That's Vayomru. But for Leimar, Vayomru, and they said. That means, according to Nehemiah, everybody said it. The words to say teach that Moshe started first, and only then did the people have permission to say the song with him. Okay? Meaning that, the Leimar to say, there was a to say to Moshe, means Moshe started, and then the Jewish people continued on with him. And they said it together with him. So the question is, how did they know how to say it?
It was a Neviah.
The answer is, although the singing was not led by Moshe, the people knew what to say because the Ruach HaKodesh, divine spirit, rested on them. And therefore they knew the words. But Moshe started, and then everybody else joined in. That's the Leimar. So again, according to Rabbi Akiva, Leimar means there's a response, a continued response coming from the Jewish people by the song by the Red Sea, while, according to Nehemiah, the Shira was sang by everyone together. That's by Yomru, and they said, Leimar, to say, which means in some way there was a response to Moshe, means that Moshe started, and then everybody joined in and continued with him. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Roman.
That's what I saw in